Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts About the 40K Universe. I am your host, Gershwin, and you are watching One Mind Syndicate. Today we continue talking about Imperial worlds as we get into the Imperial Pleasure Worlds. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We post Warhammer 40K lore videos every single day, and if you have any suggestions, please comment down below. But with that said, let's get into 40 facts on the Imperial Pleasure Worlds. An Imperial Pleasure World, also known as a Paradise World, or sometimes as a garden world, is a planet used as a playground for the Imperial nobility. They tend to be outstanding natural beauties, with a population dedicated to pampering the important Imperial visitors they often receive, such as members of major noble houses, members of the Novice Nobilite, planetary governors, confessors and cardinals, Imperial commanders, rogue traders, and even wealthy captains. Pleasure worlds are often very cultured places, and many have huge proportions of their population dedicated solely to producing works of art, music, or other forms of entertainment. Casino complexes, opulent restaurants, and huge ballrooms are often found in such worlds. Pleasure worlds hold a unique position within the Imperium, in that they are one of the few kinds of planets with minimal technological development. Tides from these planets are often lower than usual or entirely non-existent, as many are lightly populated and may have no readily available resources. Instead, pleasure worlds offer the Imperium a multitude of idyllic settings, ranging from recuperative locales to private estates in exchange for protection. They are tranquil environments, though some worrisome considerations still dangle like loose threads on a beautiful tapestry. Some are rumored to have been ancient terraforming experiments from the dark age of technology and could be unstable. Others are believed to be rediscovered after abating warp storms, and so could disappear again without warning. Still more are thought to be the lost homes of alien species, and woe to any living there should the Xenos return or reawaken. The vast majority of pleasure worlds are named for their unparalleled beauty and largely undeveloped surface. Though they have all the amenities the Imperium has to offer, they do not sacrifice the peaceful surroundings to accommodate more people. Many of these worlds are places of refuge or respite, while others are monasteries or training facilities. Regardless of their use, the basics of living engender the development of mindsets or lifestyles that support what the world delivers. Healers develop new methods to aid the afflicted. Scholars and priests research or meditate on their text relics. Even some of the martial orders have recognized the need for contemplation and reflection to better hone their impressive combat skills. Each of these outlooks, as well as many others, develop into a microculture that essentially becomes a commodity of the planet. Compared to the majority of other planets in the Imperium, pleasure worlds move at a different pace. While not necessarily slower in speed, the sense of urgency, or in some cases panic, found elsewhere rarely exists here. On most of these worlds, value is placed on being thorough and contemplative in all actions, weighing all possibilities and seeking the best from those available. Most natives have a relaxed flow to their lives, usually due to the methodical planning and preparation. Since there is often very little internal or external conflicts on these worlds, major changes in their schedules or plans seldom occur. Though most of these planets are firmly part of the Imperium, others are privately owned or cater to other clientele. These worlds are often on the fringes of lawful sector authorities and can exist outside the blessings of Terra. Those living here might hold much more relaxed views concerning Imperial law, and lifetime of dealing with rich and powerful can hone their social skills to preternatural levels. Though the mindset of the community determines much of their behavior, many pleasure world natives exude an almost eerie and unearthly sense of calm. They are for the most part methodical, but approach problem solving in a more holistic way, utilizing both hard analysis and intuition to complete their objectives. They sometimes constitute some of the Imperium's finest envoys and orators, having an innate ability to put people at ease and connect with other. Pleasure worlders are open and expressive people, but are equally skilled at keeping their emotions under control temporarily to achieve necessary goals. They do not relish this, however, and most make a point of finding a way soon after to process the emotional content before it finds a new, unhealthy way to manifest. With these skill sets, pleasure worlders make exceptional military analysts, healers, and diplomats throughout the Imperium. The Adeptus Administratum frequently recruits from these worlds, and though the tides of psychers are normally low on these pleasure worlds, the quality of the recruits from these planets ensures that very few of them escape notice from the Scholastica Psychana. The Adeptus Ministorum has also found exceptionally talented scholars and priests on these planets, and often maintains permanent bases there to find new clergy. Rogue traders who frequent such worlds often take the finest to become part of their crews, where these skills and calm decision-making can aid in negotiations. One of the most well-known and documented Imperial pleasure worlds was the world of Wrath. Historically, the Imperial pleasure world of Wrath has been entirely dependent upon its reputation as a paradise world, consisting largely of golden islands scattered across a shallow, warm turquoise sea. Its climate and environment are said to be perfect for soothing and rejuvenating the tired and troubled mind. For over 1,000 standard years, the planet's hereditary monarchs traded off this reputation, until the Dakal family staged a successful coup 2 centuries ago. The Dakals, a mid-ranking clan of Imperial nobles, brought a new, more severe interpretation of the Imperial cult to the laid-back and pleasure-loving planet. The people of Wrath are scattered across thousands of islands, and most communities are very small, usually never more than a few thousand people at most. The majority of the population lives relaxed lives. They are dependent upon their fishermen, but the seas are so plentiful that they rarely need to work too hard to eke out a living. Most communities are run by a small council of elders, with taxes paid to the local minister and priests. The planet is not heavily mechanized, but has a relatively high level of technology, with plentiful voxcasters, hovercraft, and stun nets for fishing. The reefs of the planet are home to billions of beautiful nautilines. Nautilines resemble Terran shrimp, but are unrelated to any Terran creature. They came to their current form by convergent evolution. Nautiline of different species dominate every niche in the planet's ecosystem, but few are dangerous to man. Most are delicious, although they are notorious for decaying rapidly when out of the water. Before the current governor, the people of Wrath retained a proper respect for the Lord of Mankind, but they tended to think of him in the fairly abstract neutral terms. Wrathians were typically laid back and would rather enjoy a life of mild sin than a life of confessing over-imagined sins. While this rarely came up as outright heresy, many outsiders felt that the average Wrathian needed to have the love of the Emperor thrashed into them. Sadly for the Wrathians, this current governor agrees and firmly holds this view. While it retains its status as a favored destination for senior Adeptus Terra functionaries and Imperial nobles, it also boasts a small yet influential complex for the treatment of the mentally disordered, operated by the Orders Hospitaller of the Adeptus Sororitas. This facility, the Asylum of St. Vero, based on Wrath's third largest island, treats over 1 million inmates, all suffering from a variety of mental illnesses. It is a conglomeration of hospitals, clinics, and shrines, maintained by the dutiful and dedicated sisters. Disquieting rumors persist that many of the unfortunate patients of St. Vero's asylum are in fact psychers, brought to the planet for reasons unknown. The Inquisition has on occasion sent its own troubled members to a secret bunker known as the Chapel of Blessed Peace, sited below the asylum and protected by psychic hexagrammic wards, silver seals of great potency, and a special detachment of inquisitorial stormtroopers of ancient charter. Many valued Imperial servants, whose talents are still deemed useful to the Imperium, are sent to Wrath for a period of recuperation and, in some cases, mind cleansing. Pleasure worlds are like no planet in the Imperium. Found scattered throughout the galaxy, these rare paradise planets are seen as a safe haven from the stress, fear, and dread of an empire in constant war. But while it is true that a pleasure world is like an Imperial amusement park for the rich and the most influential members of the Imperial nobility, they also hide a sinister side of not only the human inhabitants, but the ruinous powers that prey on these worlds. These are the horrible realities of a pleasure world. The class of people that are attracted to or even possess the privilege of visiting a pleasure world is extremely posh. And while these individuals are some of the most elite members of the Imperium of Man, the type of thrills and relaxation they wish to indulge in would be considered perverse by any normal standards. On pleasure worlds, you will find members of the Novice Nobilite. These are the most wealthiest and politically powerful mutant psychers in the Imperium of Man. Possessing a third eye, these psychers are known as navigators, as they use their third eye to guide ships through the warp. Without them, the Imperium would crumble. While on most planets, these dignified mutants are viewed with fear and distrust, forcing them to use their power and influence to hide from the ignorant masses of the Imperium. On a pleasure world, they they can freely express their full psychic potential without fear of reprisal. As living windows to the warp, navigators that make up the novice nobilite have tremendous powers that they must keep in check for fear of harming those around them. But when on a pleasure world, a navigator has the freedom to unleash the full wrath of their third eye and enjoy the much-needed psychic relief. Stories are told of wealthy navigators inviting pleasure world natives to their luxurious villas. Once inside, the locals become victim to all manner of horrid psychic attacks, like what they call stripping the husk. This is when the navigator quickly snaps open his warp eye, unleashing a blast of energy that immediately shears flesh from bone. In a gruesome display, navigators who utilize the power can reduce a person to a pile of steaming bones and quivering meat in a matter of seconds. Other navigators wish only to pass on the burden of their own powers. Their goal is to prove that only they have the gift to withstand the ability to look into the warp. These elite mutants take pleasure in revealing the warp to their guests with a power they call the lidless stare. This is when a navigator opens his third warp eye and allows anyone gazing into its depth to witness the mind-breaking unreality of the warp. In an instant, they witness the chaos boiling beneath the skin of existence, and for many, it is the last thing they will ever see. Some navigators prefer to act with more subtlety and train themselves to cast projections of a true face of the hellish dimension, causing even the most stout-hearted warriors to collapse to their knees and weep as their sanity is unraveled. There are countless other horrible methods a navigator can find relief in torturing the innocents of a pleasure world, and unlike other planets, on a paradise world that caters to the novice nobilite, these horrible psychic crimes will go unreported and unpunished. So comfortable are the navigator houses that when conflict occurs between their own kind, they stage navigator duels. These are contests between two massive organizations settled by two individuals on these worlds. Because navigators prefer that no one outside their secretive society witness the full force of their powers, the isolation and small population of a pleasure world is perfect. The duel takes place with careful formality. The participants bow to each other and then slowly uncover their third eye. At a prearranged signal, the duelists unleash the full force of their powers. Locked together as they gaze unflinching into each other's warp eye, they endure the horrors of the boiling chaos of the Imperium. It is a duel of physical and mental strength, as each tries to subdue the other with their horrifying gaze, and can last seconds or solar hours. The first to succumb on bent knee yields victory to their opponent. The duel is rarely to the death, for the lives of most navigators are precious even to their bitter rivals. Even so, one or both duelists might face long solar months of recovery, their minds wrecked by the strain of the warp. The Novice Nobilite is not the only Imperial organization to use pleasure worlds to settle disputes. Planetary governors are notorious for using these planets to even the score with rivals from their own planet or even the sector. Holding on to power is difficult on a hive world or even less civilized worlds like a feudal planet. When a wealthy or powerful family begins to show signs that they will someday become a nuisance to the rule of the planetary governor, a clever governor will invite the head of the household to a paradise world with the guise of a friendly retreat. Once separated from the aspiring house's power and influence, the true purpose of the invitation is revealed as the governor's horrible schemes play out. A planetary governor will sometimes simply hire an assassin to murder the victim while on vacation. Other times, a cleverly orchestrated accident will play out, like a friendly fire killing the victim during a wildlife hunt, or a malfunctioning transport exploding during planetary extraction. But most horrid of all is when a planetary governor will pay locals to plant a psychoactive drug that will render the victim a mindless husk, along with the recreational drugs that are common on these worlds. What is supposed to be a relaxing holiday on a pleasure world turns into a horrible nightmare that sends back a mentally unstable patriarch that will bring ruin to their house and put an end to any threat to the planetary governor's power. Another group that will often visit pleasure worlds with sadistic intentions is the Imperial Ecclesiarchy. High-ranking confessors and cardinals that normally lead millions in prayer to the Emperor and enforce the Imperial Creed on hundreds of hive cities will seek out paradise planets to escape from all the noise created by constant chanting, eerie wailing prayers, and watchful eyes of their peers. When on these retreats, the cardinals will be able to disrobe from their constant veneration of the Imperial Creed and act on their sadistic and cultish desires. Drunk from the power of their role on other worlds, these cardinals will feel safe to express their true belief of the Imperial Creed. Heretical thoughts that itch at the back of their minds can finally be satisfied. They start innocent enough. First, they will skip their daily prayer routines. Next, they will indulge in whatever bodily impulse that comes to their mind. Alcoholic intoxication, sexual orgies, or self-mutilation. Then things will escalate. Cardinals will defecate on holy relics such as prayer beads, ecclesiarchy pendants, and charms. And finally, statues of the Emperor of Mankind himself. Defiantly, they will force those acolytes under their command to also do the same, and begin to venerate absurd things like data slates and ornate furniture. For most of these cardinals, this will be a never-ending cycle. They will repeatedly return to these pleasure worlds, committing ever more blasphemous deeds until they finally succumb to the eventual corruption of chaos. These members of the ecclesiarchy already enjoy a life of privilege outside of these worlds, but refuse to be satisfied with what they have. The freedom of a pleasure world calls to their deep, dark desires, and they simply cannot seem to resist certain actions or sensations. These can be in the form of listening to screams of tormented pleasure world natives in torture chambers deep beneath their palaces, or things so demented like obsessively staring at walls of a particular shade for solar hours on end. From the most grand ambitions to the most seemingly innocent desires, anything that causes the slightest pleasure in a mortal is an opening through which the Dark Prince, Slaanesh, can make his presence and influence felt. Pleasure cults are a constant threat on paradise worlds. One cult may be trying to find the perfect pitch at which to scream, another seek the most efficient way to get wine into the bloodstream, and others pushing the limits of how much skin can be removed before the body fails. They are all looking for more than they have, or more than they are told is possible. Occulto Slaanesh is a study in obsession, just as their prince would have it, and these obsessive tendencies run rampant on a pleasure world. On one occasion, these pleasure cults allowed a demonic incursion to take hold, when Slaanesh sent a ripple of raw power across the Calixian sector. Strange and obsessive demonic breeds crystallize where those ripples met the psychic ebb and flow of the decadent pleasure worlds. One of these demonic breeds that formed was a runation of imperfect beauty, named by the savants of the Schola Impermessias before the final purge at the hands of the Inquisition's Ordo Calixis. A runation of imperfect beauty arose upon the pleasure world of Kinnog in the early 8th century of the 41st millennium. The sinful of Kinnog mingled in illicit pleasures, such as the creation of extravagant art and in ornate conspiracies. It was a pale and sordid reflection of the corruption of the world. All of the thorough decadence and exacting sin called this demon from the warp to complete the blackening of the noble souls. The true form of a runation is a bloated, repulsive combination of a toad, crab, and a corrupted woman, but it is rarely manifests itself until its plans reach its conclusion. Even then, it hides behind a delightful, lustful appearance. It is a potent demon, yet it drives to do more than quietly build a coven of just 6 decadents, wastrel artists, lovers, or conspirators. It whispers in their ears, steering their dreams and hopes to the construction of perfect works, the perfect painting, the perfect love, the perfect conspiracy of murder. All of the members and works are interlinked within the coven, and each nearly perfect work is marred by one deep flaw. The runation is pleasured by this undertaking and the human emotion, frustration, anger, and delight resulting from this imperfection. Perfection is a harsh taskmaster, and the demon is obsessive in manipulation and arrangement of lives. In the end, when the pattern has run its course, the brunation must draw its coven together and manifest to destroy it, so as to feed upon their souls and empower itself. A demon like this that manifests on a pleasure world has power to lay waste to the archenemy's unholy name and drive men insane with a glance, but instead, its mad demonic nature compels it to threaten and bargain as whispers on the wind. It achieves its aim by manipulating and seeping warped taint into the spires of wealth almost by accident. A ruination hates incompetence with the conviction of a zealot. Obviously, poor goods or inept artisans can act as wards, and credible accusations of imperfection can achieve banishment of this demon. While Slaaneshi demons are the most common warp entities to plague a pleasure world, demons of other major chaos gods will sometimes take advantage of a paradise planet's vulnerabilities. Grandfather Nurgle, the Lord of Disease and Decay, finds tremendous pleasure in corrupting the minds of a pleasure world botanist and landscaping architect that is tasked with maintaining the beautiful gardens so common on these worlds. Sending wave after wave of rot-causing insects, Nurgle slowly breaks down the will to upkeep the pristine environment and instead convince the caretakers of the paradise planet that spore-ridden air, acid-spewing flowers, and pustulant wheat fields are a more perfect sight. The god of war and slaughter, Khorne, takes advantage of a human desire for self-mutilation and preys on the sanguinary cults that spring up on these pleasure worlds. Sanguinary cults focus on the act of bloodshed itself, the manifold art of killing in the moment of extinction, often honing the skills of assassins beyond the skills of normal men. Such cults are willfully ignored even when displaying vampiric tendencies. On pleasure worlds, these acts of bloodletting become so extravagant that entire continent-spanning rivers will run red with the blood of the sacrificed, pleasing the cult leaders and venerating the god of blood. For Tzeentch, the god of deception, the pleasure world is a fertile breeding ground for conspirators who use the planet to plot and scheme horrible acts. The quiet and peaceful environment of a paradise world is a location where Imperial Lord Commanders, Navy officers, rogue traders, and the like sit down and strike bargains to further their own agendas. But unbeknownst to them, their clever strategies had been influenced by the god of espionage, whispering in their ears. Entire sector crusades may be launched on the plans created on a pleasure world, only to fulfill the desires of the Lord of Change. While pleasure worlds remain the most unique planets in the Imperium of Man, they are not free from the corruption of chaos, nor are they free from the horrendous actions of mankind. And those were 40 facts on the Imperial pleasure world. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, share it with your friends and thank our patrons on Patreon. It's because of them that we can do this. Link in the description if you guys want to support. It's $1 a month. I hope you guys are enjoying these compilation videos. More new videos to come soon. I'll talk to you tomorrow. This is Gersh1 with One Mind Syndicate signing out.